Hello, reading friends. We're back for another episode of Read, Return, Repeat, a Read ICT podcast. I'm Sara Dixon.
And I'm Daniel Pewewardy.
Today we're going to take a deeper look at Category 6, a book about mythology or folk tales, and an episode titled A Story for Everyone.
Our guest today is Kiowa and Apache Storyteller, Thomas Yeahpau. He goes by the pseudonym That Native Thomas. He's an author, screenwriter, and actor.
He wrote the book The Last Pow-Wow with Steven Paul Judd. It's a book teeming with magical realism, where 9 seemingly separate stories dovetail in the end at the powwow of all powwows.
We'll talk more about the book and dive into native folk tales and how they resonate in today's modern world.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Read, Return, Repeat. We're so excited. Welcome, Thomas.
Hello.
So I'll go ahead and get started. So first of all, this category is about mythology and folk tales. But how would you differentiate between mythology and folk tales?
Well, I haven't had a chance to look up the definitions of either one, but to my understanding, folk tales is more local stories, rather, that kind of pass around, like Bloody Mary, which is at every town across America and probably the world, It's kind of the folk tales. But the mythology is, how stars came to be, stories revolving around creation, more important stories. As far as folk tales are more just life lessons. And I think mythology is more rooted in belief. But, it can cross over as well, too. A lot of the, especially Native Americans with our mythology, it's different on every tribe. So it's hard to imagine, 250 different views upon how the world was created, and so that's the mythology. But then you go into tribes and they all have their own little folk tales, like the Inuits up in the north have I think I saw a movie with a runner. They have their those stories that they tell for certain reasons, to teach a life lesson within their community, in which that one was about betrayal, not betraying family. It's, keeping family first. That's where my two definitions I think are different.
That's really interesting. So why do you think that folk tales and mythology and these things, they resonate so deeply with people?
I think it's just our need to, I think we inherently have a need to hear stories and know stories in our lives. We actually go out and seek them. And then not only, and if we can't seek them, we can't find them, we tend to go out there and live them, And, truthfully, that's what we are. We're just all living story. When, we're all buried underneath the earth, there's the story of us. Kind of like, I think the play Hamilton plays, at the end, who's going to tell your story? I always like that song. Yeah. I thought that was a good concept. I was like, yeah, this is what we are. We're living stories. So, yeah, we're going to be drawn to stories, especially stories of the unknown, like mythology stories, which are rooted in belief. So there's no really telling if it's true or not. We don't know if Zeus is alive or or made up. We don't know any of these mythologies. Even our stories. A dare lady. A lot of people have their same with Bigfoot. We have our, if we believe it or we don't believe it. That's how. But a lot of us have different stories we resonate toward too, depending on our lifestyles. Like me, I resonate toward all true crime, even though I don't write true crime. But that's what I like to really watch, and it teaches me life lessons because I get myself in really bad predicaments, or used to, in really bad settings. So watching those shows, I know what to watch out for. And so they all serve purpose. I think every story does in a way. I hope that's my drive, I guess, is that every story's got to teach something. Or you want to walk away and just I want people when I tell a story that they think about it later on. Or mention it to somebody. What do you think about this? Because I like to try to get people thinking and differently. And but yeah, that we all are attracted to stories because we are stories. And in the end, that's what this whole world is. We had the dinosaurs before us. We don't know too much of their story, but they lived the story here. And now we're kind of profiting off of that too. But we're generations now, people want to talk about us and especially this whole pandemic thing we just went through. That's right. A whole big story. That's what our generation will probably be known for, going through that. but yeah, I mean, that's where I see the two coming together and being attracted to each other. It's just, we are stories, and we love stories.
That's
Just
interesting.
like,
I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk
right.
over you. I see, I think when I think of folktales, it's these they are the stories, but they're not like, they are our stories, but they're not like, I don't know. I guess I see them as I've always kind of held them in a different category. And so I like how you're framing it, is what I'm trying to say very poorly. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
So I was going to ask a question. So like, I feel like these traditional stories are starting to kind of be showing up in different forms now, film and television. And do you feel like they're still impactful for the world through these lenses? Like, I know like TikTok, you see a lot of like native TikTokers telling their traditional stories and things. And do you feel that these are things this is happening because we were still learning from these stories? Or what do you feel about like the increased resonance of the last few years?
I wouldn't say we're still learning from them. I mean, we are still learning from them, but there's just increasingly high demand for them right now. We're running out of them. And you can see that watching TV and seeing, oh, they're remaking that. Oh, they're remaking that. Oh, they really are out of ideas, I especially saw when I saw that dang Fresh Prince of Bel-Air reboot. And I was like, are they really doing this?
I've got the same thing.
Are we that dire for stories,
And it's like a drama, I think.
That we're going to take an old story and then change the genre of it. It's like, well, what's next now? We're going to do Martin, the serious Martin.
Gina.
I guess if you think about that too, with like how we had a tough time finding traditional storytellers. Like one group in town disbanded, two were like advanced in age and had like health issues and things. And like like you said, we're running out of stories, but we're also running out of storytellers. Like, how do you feel this is something? True. How do you feel this is something that like indigenous cultures can like fight against? Like, what are methods and ways of just telling the stories, or do you think there's more to that?
That's a really good point you just put up. I mean, as far as running out of storytellers, because that is true. I mean, we do have a surgence of screenwriters coming up right now, and they're actually doing it pretty good now, opposed to what they did in the past. And we got their marketing good enough that there's a demand for our stories now, and but we just got to be good at telling them right and telling them, not letting the Hollywood get the best of us, basically, because they will rearrange the stories, they will make them more commercial. And because I went, I did my stint through Hollywood back in 2005, and I got to see what it was really like, and I didn't like it. I walked away from it, and I actually stopped writing for almost 10 years because it totally uninspired me as a writer and a storyteller. And I got caught up in it too. I was on the verge of basically selling my soul when I didn't do it. I didn't want to do it, and I'd rather. At that time, I wanted to be a dad, a father, more than I wanted to be a screenwriter or movie maker or whatever I was trying to be. But with the demand now, it's like. But I hope everybody, really puts work into it to really, not just succumb to what they want and, try to please. And I think it's why we haven't really been reached out to, because we won't give our stories up so easily. We never would. And a lot of them we can't tell. Like I have stories in my tribe that I have told in one of my books, but it wasn't when I created a new story of this character. But there's certain stories we only tell in wintertime. Certain stories we only tell in summertime. So some people will say, hey, you can't tell that story. You can't put that on TV because people watch it all year long, and you're missing up, the medicine behind it and the strength behind it and the power behind it. And you're just basically just throwing it out to the world for them to use it up any way they want and do whatever they want with it. And so like the natives are really protective of their stories, but now there's, now we're all getting out there, and I'm hoping everybody does it right and does their work into telling the best story possible rather than what's going to sell $1 million or what's going to sell marketing time for these TV shows, And it's a hard, that's the business of, movie making and TV. It's art and business collision, and it's a heck of a thing to do. And it's good to watch, though. I'm glad I'm in the background and not in the forefront. Because I remember I did want to be in the forefront when I was in Hollywood the first time. But now I'm glad I didn't, because I would have failed and probably crashed badly. Well, I wouldn't have crashed bad. I just would have took bad. My stories back then were bad. And I've changed. I'm telling better stories now. So I didn't I won't even touch the stories I had back then because they were all rooted in me trying to be, explicit and this and that, just and plus my upbringing. So
do you feel that as you get older, your style's developed, like not just like on the pen and paper, but also like when you tell these stories, like in an oral traditional sense, or like how do you, and when that happens, do you feel like there's variations between how you tell the story now versus like when you heard it before? Like, just how's your style changed, do you feel?
Yeah, and it comes more easier to me. I'm actually almost kind of freaked out sometimes, and how easily it comes to me because it's like the other day. I was writing on a script just the other day, and I had to come up with the creation story, or I had to come up with like a little story that natives tell, and I came up and called it "How Snake Lost Its Legs," and then I came up with this whole story behind it, and it came really easily, and I was really shocked. I was like, man, it's almost like a creation story, and I came up with it pretty fast. And I guess to me, it's just more about I trust my instincts more now. As far as when I was younger, I'd always try to find a better way, and I always try to manipulate the stories better. And I was really always shooting for shock value rather than to really teach people. And I always wanted to always looking to do something different in every story. If you ever read my first book, it's called the Ex-Indian Chronicles. Every story in there I wrote in a different style so that it could be studied and people see how you can write write a whole story just using dialogue, writing stories messing with the sequence of time, and and doing a clever way of doing it, and so yeah, back then I was really into groundbreaking, trying to groundbreak stuff. Now I'm not so much about groundbreaking. Now I just want to tell a good story. I want to see people smile, laugh, cry, or be scared, because I tell all genres. Now I'm more geared toward the audience walking away happy and remembering the story rather than being shocked by it and appalled by it. Because my first short film was a film about these which the girl in Wichita played my wife in it, and Sara Baker, I think's her name, and she went to high school with me. But it's about a group of guys who celebrate Columbus Day every year by killing a white guy. And it was a real harsh story. But he falls in love with a white girl at college, and he comes back one year to practice tradition, but he has to hide his girlfriend from his friends. But they discover it, and he has to choose love or hate, and he chooses love, and then they end up beating him really bad because of it. And but he chooses love, So from the beginning, I was always trying to, get shock appeal, and that film I made for really almost nothing. I didn't even know how to make films. And it went all over the film festival circuit. People were like, and it was weird because people either really loved it or really hated it. I was watching people get up and walk out like after the first 5 minutes. And I used to be proud of that, and I was like, but now I don't shoot for that now. I'm like, you see in my last short film, it's about, horror film, and it's just about teaching you things not to do. With that particular film, I did a horror film. Not Indians, I believe children don't leave their favorite toy outside. And if they do, you don't bring it back in because the spirit attaches to it because it's so dear to that child that it knows it can get to that child through that toy. And so I made a little short film about that. And that's the, power of stories to teach, So I guess, age, I guess I'm built more toward teaching and more good story rather than shock value and trying to get my name out there. Again, I guess ultimately that was probably the ultimate goal of me doing that shock value stuff early on. Was just to build my name up.
I just gotta say, Chief, the world's best res dog, was in the chapter in the Last Pow-Wow. Like I cried at the end of that. I love that story. Like the dog, like for the listeners, there's a dog who has like lived. Like he gets cursed by a deer woman, I believe, and he becomes immortal, so he protects this town. And it's just like the story of this res dog, and like how he protected his people and continues to protect. And it's like it was a great story. And I think that's like, do you like adding new characters, or do you like developing these stories and hoping that they continue like through other people, like in traditional ways? Or do you just, when you make these new characters, are you just doing them for the book, or do you like also tell these stories in other ways?
I try to tell as much as possible. I like that's a good thing I like about the way I approach art is I can do all mediums. I started in acting, then I went to directing, then I went to writing. I do editing. I edit everything. I score all my films. So I write music, and I do poetry. I was poetry slam champion down there in Kansas for a while, around Lawrence, Kansas, and Kansas City area. So I do all mediums basically. So it's really good when I create characters because I can't take them to different mediums like poetry or in my book. Which you will see a lot of crossovers in the future when I do come up with my next book. It's already written. I'm just trying to figure out if I want to self-publish it or look for a publishing company. But with Chief wasn't my creation. Chief was kind of my creation. My co-author came up with the idea we should do a story about a res dog, and I was just jogging one day, and it all came to me, and I was like, "Yeah, this dog has a warp on it that's tied to his head that it can't get off, and it's got 3 legs, and it's got 3 legs to give other beings a chance because it's so powerful and strong, and yeah, and my co-author didn't want me to kill him at the end, and I was like, well, I shouldn't do that. Spoiler alert, but
Yeah.
but yeah, it is a say. Even he kind of teared up. I was telling him, yeah, I'm kind of he dies at the end. I was telling him how the story goes. He's like, what? Can't do all that and just have him die. And I was like, well, people got to die in this story or this book, and he's going to be a casualty. But yeah, I mean, creating characters are really fun, because especially with that one, I want to say, because when I was writing the script for him, I got to tell more of the Chief's story about how he got the war bonnet on his head. There's a lot more to it, and then and then in the script, he's more militant. He's very militant in the way he talks more in the script, So yeah, to really get to know these characters and spend time with them, and then watch them, now that I can jump them from novel to script or to whatever, I decide, it's really good. I mean, the characters to me are real people, and almost, in my mind, it's like Chief. I know exactly what Chief looks like. I mean, it's when I write stories with him, I'm actually sitting in a room wherever he's at with my characters I write, and that one's always a fun one to write about. And I'll actually write stories about you just to kind of even be in his presence of that character, just because I like it. And I'll do that with other characters I have too as well. Stories that I'll never, see the light of day, I'll write just for my pleasure, basically, to really get to know these characters. Because in a way, I have a feeling I'll have to write for them again later, which I might with Chief and a couple other ones.
Let's take a short break, and then we'll come back. We'll talk more about your book, and a little bit more about traditional storytelling. So we'll be right back.
All right.
The Wichita Public Library has entered the world of streaming with Canopy. Library card holders can now access Canopy's massive collection of movies, TV shows, and educational content from the great courses. There's content for children, adults, and foreign language options too. Card holders get 7 free checkouts a month, and Canopy's constantly updating their library, so there's always something new to watch. To find out more, please visit wichitalibrary.org/canopy, Kanopy. Canopy, just one of the many services provided to you from the Wichita Public Library.
And we're back. You're listening to Read, Return, Repeat. We're here with that native Thomas. Thomas, you've written a book. Tell us about the Last Pow-Wow that you wrote with Steven Paul Judd.
Last Pow-Wow is basically it's a book of 9 journeys. People go into this powwow, this mysterious powwow that they find out only allows full bloods into it. Full blood Native Americans, mixed bloods can't get into it. So the mixed bloods protest it, but and it shows that it's kind of a government conspiracy at the end. You find that, but it's all the spiritual, and all the traditional stuff of different tribes. All those 9 characters, they're all from different tribes. I try to put something notable in Native culture throughout it all. I mean, we was talking about earlier. all the big powwows are named in there. All the main big mythology figures that we have are in the powwow, are in the last powwow. Issues regarding native issues are in the powwow, are in the last powwow, and are in the one of our biggest end of times prophecies is in there as well. And one chapter is actually straight fiction. I don't know if you got to that chapter yet or not, but it's
I haven't actually
about how Abraham Lincoln had, was it 27 Dakota warriors hanging. It was the biggest mass hanging in America. So, as bad as, America wants to portray Abraham Lincoln as this, savior. No, he was not. He still didn't see Native Americans as human beings. He was one of the presidents that did a lot of bad to natives as well. And so it's like, I don't need to tell, that this book kind of exposes that, and it's implemented into the story. Why this story is taking place, at where it's taken, and why it's taking place, and what past trauma, generational trauma has caused all of this, and but that's basically how the Last Pow-Wow is, what it's about. I try to make me and Steve try to write one of the most native books ever written, basically, is one of our goals, I guess it was. We want people to look at this, read this book, say, man, that was a native book. It's real stuff there, I think one story we tackle meth addiction, the character's mom's hooked on meth, and like that resonates on a lot of reservations, and everyone's been through that, or a lot of our native people have been through that. No characters like that, and so, we try to keep it real as possible. And, then we do the spiritual with the stories, with this girl who has ghost of butterflies coming out of her mouth, and I think we do a good that with telling like a mythology story, and so it's a weird balance. It's some stories are funny, some are romantic, some are scary, some are dramatic, some are very traditional. So, it'd be hard to really put the book on, a genre. I think it's just Native American literature is all I could really describe it as.
So when you were, so the Last Pow was set during like modern times, like 21st century, but it features a lot of traditional characters. Were there concerns about contemporizing those characters? And did you do any research to prepare for this? And were there other examples that you consider, have you seen it like this done like in any other like place that might have inspired you, I guess?
I don't think so. I think, I was talking about groundbreaking, early in my career, I wanted to be a groundbreaker. And I think that's where this one is. I don't think I've ever read a book like it, or was trying to be like another book either as well. And contemporary, that's kind of my thing. I think mixing contemporary stories with old stories, I've always done that. Like telling a, version of a trickster where the trickster is a man rather than a coyote, I've done that type of story before. And I had the privilege to work with Steven Paul Judd, which, his art does as well, mixes contemporary with old stuff. And he's really good at doing that. And so to have his eye and to have him use his eye into his brain to tell, to try to put that into a story wise, because Chief's kind of his thing. It's his brainchild, and a couple other characters in there. And to be able to bring them alive and make them contemporary was really, it's kind of hard, and kind of, it's a balance of how much knowledge do we give this person of traditional beliefs, and how much does he believe it? How much is, is he going to want to, go to Taco Bell rather than, eat a traditional meal of this and that, coming out straight out sweat meat, going to Taco Bell rather than waiting for, elders to cook a meal, or families to cook a meals, and just different stuff you have to really pay attention to, I guess. And I think with the Last Pow, I think we did a really good job. Like I said, we put them in different settings, every character, and a lot of them, almost all of them, are contemporary, and we pull it off really well, I think. And as far as being modern Native American storyteller, I think all of us have to learn how to do that. I'm seeing that even on the TV shows going out right now. Natives doing, they're being forced to make us contemporary, and we can adjust it, it's part of the storytelling process is, where you're going to put your character and how you want to make this character thrive. I think my biggest issues with mine is cell phones, because, truthfully, if you want to be truthfully about a modern story right now, you have to put in there that they checked their cell phone or they saw this on their cell phone and everything. But as a writer, you don't really think of that. It's cooler when the character just finds out something through doing it or showing it, and that they're not finding out by a text message or seeing a video online. But that sooner or later has to seep in our writing, and it's seeping in TV now because now you're seeing shows where they do the text message and they write it across the screen, So I'm like, oh, a script. They wrote that in the script, to be shown, So I was like, people are doing it. And that's the only trouble I have with making it contemporary is just remembering stuff like that, that, oh yeah, we got to bring them back to the real age. I'm still trying to bring my characters in the 90s. And, I need to move them up a couple of decades, but yeah, I mean, it's a good balance and good, and it can actually help the story because you can find a new way of telling that story when you have a car to use or something modern. And or a modern even belief system, which I'm finding a lot of. I mean, I like this really cool story. I can't tell it, but I'm kind of working on my head right now. It's kind of involves that to where it's like, oh, how do I do something in modern age? And but it's an old story, and it's challenging, but it's fun too.
So yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah, that's great.
Just giving me lots to think about. And, I'm excited to read the book. I'm going to just go ahead and throw it out there. We're going to have a couple of copies of The Last Pow-Wow in our collection. So, if we have convinced you to read this book so far, then hopefully you'll come and check it out from us. That was to our listeners, Thomas. I didn't actually say that. That's not to you. But you can come check it out from us too if you want. Okay, so often in this tradition of storytelling, people will include art, they'll include music and dance. Why do you think that it's so important to include that performative aspect to the story?
I think that's the same reason why, why we have different places to shop, different places, different clothes to buy. We all have different tastes. And storytelling is entertainment, some people like to be entertained by stories being told within their music, like Broadway musicals. Some people like to be entertained by stories told in dance, and which is the same way musicals, powwows. I really like it when I go to powwows and they tell a certain dance that tells a certain story. Those are really good to watch and, really hard to catch these days because, storytellers are becoming less and less. And you don't really see it too much anywhere where you see elders just sitting around telling stories and people watching. And I was telling my wife, I think a couple of weeks ago, I miss, my aunts were really masters at doing that with us growing up. They would implement, slamming doors without us knowing it, getting ready, having it ready. And they had the whole scary thing down. One of them would be outside ready to bang on the window there in part of the story. And so really, they add the other elements into it. I guess it's sense, you get the sense of hearing, the sense of dance, and I mean, like I said, I make music too. So it really is healing for me to make music as I write. Actually, like when I write in screenplays, when I'm about to write a scene, I'll usually write the music for that scene, even though if I'm never going to ever direct it, I never no chance to direct it, I still would like to know what that music in that scene would sound like. And it helps me write that. Then I'll record it and then I'll just listen to that little loop of whatever I made as I write that scene. And, it actually gives me kind of a score to the writing as well. And I do that a lot. And I like I went and watched, I went to a native comedy show this past weekend. They had a native singer there named Tia Wood or Nia Wood, one of the two. But she would tell stories as she sang and, where this song came from, where, it came from, how she was feeling on the res and this and that. And then to hear her put that experience into words, into music is like ultimate gratification of hearing a story, and ultimately they're made to entertain. And that's like ultimate form of entertaining when you can sing and dance and song. And, for as long as, all of our cultures have dance and song. So it's part of who we are as human beings. We have this need to express ourselves through just dancing to music and, make sure our bodies and our minds feel free, release stress. I'm sure it has something to do with our biology too, as well. It kind of helps in a way. Like I remember, well, this is getting off subject, but
that's okay. Go ahead.
I went to a Pewewardy dance powwow one time where they were doing a woman was just in there dancing the whole, 2 days or 3 days straight, however long they do it. And they're dancing a certain way. And I was like, what's going on there? And it was real intriguing to me, but it's like, oh, they dance like that because it helps her build her muscles up in her, in her thigh area, whatever. And It's going to ultimately later on in life is going to help her in childbirth. And so this is kind of her way, our way of getting her muscles ready and knowing her, getting her ready for puberty and motherhood and all that. And I thought, that's weird, so we have dance to really teach us how to do things like that and prepare us for life. And some of our powwow songs or powwow dances do that. We have like little kids dances that teach us not to talk to strangers. And then you have war dances when you're ready, the warriors are ready to go out to war. They're showing their dance moves off to their families and to the tribe and everyone else. They're ready for war and they're celebrating it. And, it just gets just part of our culture, I mean, even now as we watch TV, watching Stranger Things last night, I recognize things like the score, and anytime, they throw dancemen in there, they will. And it's fun to watch. It's even fun to watch, It's just a form of entertainment, just like storytelling. It keeps us going day by day. And, somewhere in our culture, it's part of who we are, part of what we do for fun. I don't know why I like to do it, but I'll shake a leg here and there.
It's also like cathartic in a way, probably.
Especially if it does enhance my storytelling, because I like to get really involved. It's part of Kiowa's, our tribe. We're known for telling stories, and we use our hands and we go crazy. If you ever see this movie called Dream Catcher, I think it was Dream Keeper, where they tell those stories. It's an old Native movie with
the
Eddie
Hallmark
Spears.
one, yeah, I see.
Yeah, they do a Kiowa one, but in the Kiowa one, they're all like going crazy with their hands and how they're telling stories and talking. I'm like, I remember I was telling someone when I was watching, I was like, "Do we really, really talk like that?" As I was telling them that we didn't talk like that, I was doing it.
And it's kind of like with you have that whole aspect of like dancing and TikTok and things now, like dancing, just like these like storytelling. It's like you see a lot of that happening too.
With TikTok, it's going to be happening a lot more with storytellers. So the future storytellers are going to have to implement that, and telling shorter stories, basically. So
right, in a tiny little like nugget. So speaking of TikTok and moving these stories online, I mean, so it's a new format, it's a new digital age. Although it's like we've been doing this for a little while now, so I don't know if it's a new digital age. But do you think it's possible to come up with new stories? Like, have all the stories already been told? And I would say that a lot of stories are even, we were talking about, what were we talking about? Well, one where it was like just remaking it with a new spin. Oh, Fresh Prince.
Yeah.
Right? Like, are there any other new stories out there?
Well, when I remember I was in Hollywood, getting really, I won a fellowship at ABC Disney, and they went down there and they trained me gave me probably the highest type of training for a screenwriter can get, I mean, I was in front of the CEOs of Disney and ABC, and they put us in rooms with big people and let the big people teach us whatever we wanted to learn or what we had questions with. And one of the interesting things one of them told me, I remember, was there's only 3 stories you can tell. That's I can't even remember what they were. It's like stranger comes to town, stranger leaves town, and I think boy meets girl. I think or something like that. It was like 3 of them. It was like
falls in love with stranger.
And I was like, oh, and then I started breaking down my stories, seeing if they fit one of those 3 categories, and just about all of them did. And I was like, oh, there might be something right to that. But yeah, so. And I guess so. So to me, there's probably not new stories, but unless we get into conspiracy theories to where aliens are going to come to Earth and then we get to learn their stories, and that's probably what we'll do too. We'll want to know their story. Hey, what's your story? Because we seek new stories.
Yeah,
we got all the stories around here on Earth. What do y'all got going on up there? Kind of conflicts do y'all have?
Well, then it's still a stranger coming to town. So
yeah, it is, and it's like. But I guess it's just new ways of telling it, and that's even getting harder these days. It's like, wow, how do you, that's where this, like I say, the demand for Native American stories, because they believe it's a new way of telling stories, or just new stories, but it's kind of the same. But like I said, it's just different way of telling it, our way of telling it, where we kind of held the spiritual side and the importance of the land and animals and our connection with it. And I think people, and hopefully that'll help, getting our stories out there where we can put that out there more, especially with climate change going on. Like, hey, we've been telling these stories a lot. I was watching a fire documentary last night about when this town Paradise in California went up in flames, and we moved here to the Oregon coast because the smoke got so bad in southern Oregon that I probably, my breathing was affected by it and everything. But I was watching that fire documentary. Damn, I got off story again. But I was watching it. What was I saying about before that?
We were talking about the new ways to tell stories.
Yeah. Well, we could just go to the next.
Oh, it was the way natives did it. It was for a reason. They're speaking these new stories, and then climate change is what I was talking about. And I was watching them on that show last night, and the natives, even way before colonizers came, had a system to do all these small brush fires around their communities, so that when fires come, it didn't jump into their communities. They had a certain way, but when colonizers came, they saw them just burning up land, thinking, "Hey, I was just burning up land. I need to stop doing that," and made them stop, outlined it. And that's part of where a lot of these fires are just getting out of control, because especially killing, demolishing these towns, because they're not building a little protective area around it. Even when they're asked to do it, because I was watching a documentary, the town had to vote on it to make it a law to do it. All the townspeople voted against it. It's like, but these were stories that they even saying, native people have been doing this for a long time to keep the fires at bay, and helps fight forest fire. And they had different ways of fighting it too. Natives did back in the old days, and I spent some time down there to know about that. But it all passed down through their stories, and it's even within their stories of how they do it. They don't even write it down; they just know how to do it. And so stories, it has a big impact on the world and us. And finding new ones is, that's why we watch TV, and that's why we waiting on the next great TV show. And just to kind of, and it's also a social thing. We all want to be in a loop and be able to talk to people about the stories that we saw, the news story that everyone's looking for, that everyone thinks is new, but it's, Stranger Things is basically the same thing every season. Why people don't see that, and every Marvel movie is the same, it's like, wow, I stopped watching them. It got so formulaic, so just the formula, just so I can guess everything, know when something's coming, know when I need to go bathroom, because all right, this is where they slow things down for 15 minutes, and so we strive to, I just think there's new ways of telling stories, not news. In a way, I guess in a way you can say there's new stories, and if you never knew that character, if you never heard of that character, there can be new stories that way. Because we all don't know each other, and we're never going to all know each other. You can always create a new character that can make you want to follow that character through the journey, But that comes into characterization more than storytelling, though. That's a whole different thing. That's how I feel about that.
Do you have any advice for anyone listening that might want to be a storyteller, like things they can do to be a good storyteller?
Yes, right, and redraft. Like my first book, you're reading the 24th draft of it. The Last Pow-Wow, you're reading the 13th draft. I know I should have done 20 at least, but I was kind of excited. I shouldn't, I jumped the gun on that one. We both did, me and my co-author. But it's still doing what it does, and still selling copies and still getting out there, and it's in classrooms where I wanted to be. That was my biggest goal, was to get in classrooms too, to teach Native students how, because I took writing classes, and I got to see how different stories were written. It was mind blowing to me that it didn't have to be a certain amount of pages, it didn't have to be this and that. I can do anything, and so I kind of hope to do the same with the Last Pow-Wow. Inspire the great Native American writer that's going to come out pretty soon. It's not going to be me. It's not anyone out there right now, but they're on their way up. And I hope the Last Pow-Wow's in their curriculum of things they've read when they do make it.
That's awesome. Yeah. So thank you so much. This was just a real pleasure to talk to you, kind of dive into your brain a little bit.
Is there a place that people can access your, or what?
No, that's
Yeah,
great.
yeah, yeah.
Keep asking.
Is there a place that people can check you out, like YouTube, your website?
Yeah, if you go to YouTube, I got 2 different channels. Just type in That Native Thomas. Like I said, one of the channels is my new stand-up comedy character I created. I was experimenting. I upload a lot of videos of that, and that's going to be used for the future reference. I'm still not done with that. Taking a break from it though, and then you'll see another That Native Thomas channel where it's all my old short films. And I kind of in the description you can actually read how I've made each one of them because I actually wanted the kind of people to use it to kind of learn how to make films. I did it without knowing nothing because I'm a self-taught filmmaker. I'm a self-taught screenwriter, and I had to learn for nothing. And I basically, luckily, I was an actor first because really, in reality, I was just acting like I knew how to direct, acting like I knew how to make film, and and it's basically I wasn't comfortable until my 5th short film to actually call myself a director, even though the films I made before them and went all over the country, but I still didn't feel comfortable holding the camera. And hopefully you see Last Pow-Wow on a TV show soon. We're working on
That's
an
awesome.
option by two big production companies, Bad Robot and Monkey Paw, which is Jordan Peele's company. They're both interested in optioning it. We're trying to decide which one to go with and which
That's
one
awesome.
Yeah,
which
congratulations.
more serious about getting out to everybody, So
Yeah.
you ain't seen the last of the Last Pow-Wow, and so and hopefully we're gonna reboot it to be released again too as well. That's another thing we're working on, and I did the audio book for it, so you can catch it on audio book as well. You can hear my voice. It isn't as deep and dark as I thought it was. I remember going into that sound booth thinking I was going to sound like the dark, deep voice guy from Boys the Man, but no, I don't sound like that. I don't sound like I thought I sounded. So
I saw on reviews people were saying he needs to do more audiobooks. People were really impressed with your book. On the Audible reviews, people were really impressed with your voice.
That's good because I ain't read any of that. I have to check it out. It might inspire me. I actually do have one I'm about to release on there now. I could use this. It's a short story I did called The Black Teepee, which I think I posted on my Facebook, and it's on that YouTube channel now I think about it. And but I'm actually about to put it into audiobook form, even though it's only 10 minutes. But it's scary. But a lot of people heard that and said it was really scary, and they really liked it for Halloween. So I'm gonna try to get it. I'm trying to teach myself how to upload audiobooks into Audible. So that's going to be my first test to see if I can. I already have it recorded and everything. I just got to upload it. And then I know because I do have my own publishing company, Hostile Publishing, which I released Last Pow-Wow on, and I hope to release more stuff. And that's what I'm learning because I have some children's book as ebooks through my production company no one talks about called The Underwear Boy War Parties, and kind of like Captain Underpants, but native version, where you can read it and it has all the sound effects to make as you read it. If you read it to your kid, it'll say make a blow up sound here or something like that, and they're really good children's books that I mainly just created to see if I could make to learn how to make ebooks. And so now with this Black TP, I'm doing the same for audiobooks. I'm learning how to make audiobooks, and that way when it comes down to it, I don't have to rely on a publisher to steal all my stuff and own my rights, because that's the biggest concern of my self-publishing, because I don't want people to own my rights. Because my first book, I don't have no rights to, or I did acquire the TV rights and the ebook rights recently, or I did require them, but I want to be able to own my own all rights. Just like the Last Pow, we can turn a TV show, we do whatever we want without answering to nobody right now, and I like that feeling. So these production companies are liking working with us with this, because there's no middleman, so we can. It's like me and Steve own these rights to these stories. These are our stories, and that's where I'm trying to get onto my publishing company. That I don't have to do that, and not help other natives that don't have to worry about that too, because it is a big ordeal, especially with the high demand for native stories right now. They're going to try to steal your stories, and they're going to try to steal your rights. So we need people like me that kind of know a little bit about it, help other people. Watch your stuff, because Hollywood, that's how it runs. They buy your rights to your stories and everything. So you have to watch it. Think about that before you sign that contract.
Yeah.
Thank you so much again.
Did you know that the Wichita Public Library has a wealth of local history resources that you can use? From old yearbooks to newspaper archives to genealogy databases, you can find it all here. Located on the second floor of the Advanced Learning Library, our knowledgeable staff can help you with every task, from finding newspaper articles that made Wichita history to researching your family tree. For more information, visit wichitalibrary.org/research/local history.
Before we wrap up today's episode, let's listen to 3 reading recommendations for Category 6 from our Wichita Public Library staff.
Hello, my name is Cassie, and I'm part of the programming team here at the Wichita Public Library. Today I'm going to talk about a fiction book based on mythology, Category 6 of Read ICT. My recommendation is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Classical historian Miller not only tells Homer's well-known and beloved tale of the Trojan War, but presents it in such a way that readers are immediately transported to ancient Greece, meeting gods and goddesses and legendary characters such as Apollo, Athena, Helen of Troy, Odysseus, Hector, and the Trojan War's ensuing tragedy. This age-old tale of Greece's greatest hero, Achilles, is given a new twist by Miller. The point of view is told from Patroclus, Achilles' great and beloved friend. I think this uniqueness is what I loved most about the book. We all know the legend, and we know the end, but Miller, through Patroclus, presents through elegant yet simple prose the story with a different dimension when we see the deeply conflicted brave warrior Achilles choosing his tragedy, enriched by layers of love and friendship. Author Rick Riordan, author of the amazing Percy Jackson and the Olympian series, says, Patroclus, in a Hemingway-like directness, cuts through the legend of the hero and shows the mortal side of the demigod. The Song of Achilles can serve as an introduction or counterpoint to the study of the Iliad. It certainly made the story new and vibrant for me, despite how many times I've read Homer. For more reading recommendations, visit wichitalibrary.org/readict.
My name is Misty, and I'm a technology trainer at the Advanced Learning Library, and this is my recommendation for Read ICT's Category 6, a book based on mythology or folklore called Dark Fever by Karen Marie Moaning. Meet Michaela Lane, Mac for short, a small-town Georgia native that has very little worries in her pretty pink world, up until Mac's family gets a call from Dublin, Ireland, reporting her sister has been murdered. Soon after, Mac realizes her sister had left a frantic voice message warning Mac she needed to get to Dublin and find the Sinsardu. After learning Dublin's police force is no longer searching for her sister's murderer, Mac has had enough and leaves Georgia for Dublin. Not long after landing, Mac learns in Dublin, outside appearances cannot be trusted, and she is one of the few that can see the monsters within. Mac learns she is one of a few Sea-Seers, a group of women with special abilities and the capability to see the seelie and unseelie fae left in existence. What's more, Mac has the capability to track the disastrous Sinsardu, which catches the attention of 2 foreboding men after it. Mac is left wondering if she can find the book that can possibly destroy the world first and locate her sister's murderer before something disastrous happens to her. Dark Fever is the first book in a large adult fiction series, deep with Irish and Scottish mythology and folklore. This has been my recommendation for Category 6. For more reading recommendations, visit wichitalibrary.org/readict.
My name is Michelle from the Wichita Public Library Circulation Department, and my pick for Read ICT Category 6, Mythology and Folklore, is Cassandra Speaks by Elizabeth Lesser. The title comes from the myth of Cassandra. Apollo granted her the gift of prophecy, but when she refused his advances, he cursed her and said that she would not be believed. The subtitle of the book is When Women Are the Storytellers, the Human Story Changes. And the author talks about finding the place in yourself to have the strength to speak up. And also finding the place in yourself where you listen to others and listen and look at things from a different point of view. For more reading recommendations for Read ICT, go to wichitalibrary.org/read ICT.
And that about does it for another episode of Read, Return, Repeat. We hope you enjoyed exploring Category 6 with us. The show notes will have a complete list of the books and films mentioned today. You can request any of these books by calling 316-261-8500 or visiting wichitalibrary.org.
Keeping in with the theme of today's episode, we thought it would be cool to leave you with a poem by Blackbear Bosin, famed local artist behind our beloved Keeper of the Plains, and so many other cool pieces you can find at the Mid-America All-Indian Museum. It is with their permission that we share this poem with you today.
The Challenge by Blackbear Bosin, Kiowa and Apache. In the days when creatures like this bear roamed the Great Plains, in the days when the buffaloes were plenty, stories were told and retold about happenings such as the hunters viewed from atop a hill. The stories said how they fought and also how they did not, for no one ever became a victor. So it was when the two came face to face, with mutual instinct knowing both their strength to be conserved, for their kind to continue to survive. But to satisfy their individual spirits, the ritual of battle had to be enacted as prescribed. And only when their fire had been consumed would they walk away from one another, each a victor, each a lord on his domain. Only the foolish challenges the laws of nature.
Thank you to the Mid-America All-Indian Museum for allowing us to share that poem with you. Thank you to That Native Thomas for talking with us today.
To participate in the Read ICT Reading Challenge, please visit wichitalibrary.org/readict. Stay connected with other Read ICT participants on the Read ICT Challenge Facebook page. Find out what's trending near you, post book reviews, look for local and virtual events, and share book humor with like-minded folks. To join the group, search #ReadICT Challenge on Facebook and click join.
You can follow this podcast through the Anchor app or stream episodes on whatever platform you listen to podcasts. If you like what you heard today, be sure to subscribe and share with all your friends.
This has been a production of the Wichita Public Library, and a big thanks goes out to our production crew and podcast team.